Well, we do have a slight chance of light snow after 3 p.m. this afternoon. Otherwise, it'll be mostly cloudy, and the high should be near 19 degrees. Tonight, we'll see mostly cloudy skies, a low of 13, and tomorrow it'll be mostly sunny with a high near 33. That's weather on KMEM, America's Best Country.
This is the award-winning broadcast of Healthy University, bringing health and vitality to you and your family, brought to you by Scotland County Hospital in Memphis. Now, here's your host, Dr. Randy Tobler.
Doctor, my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without crying. Now I want
Good morning and welcome to Healthy You. I am Dr. Randy Tobler, along with Mr. Bud Wilson and producer Elisa Kiger. Thanks for being with us. How you doing this morning, Bud?
Can I just tell you? It's
You can tell me.
7 degrees, and I am cold.
It was 6 in Bible Grove.
Yeah.
You guys live up on the hill. I don't know what to tell you about that.
But there's good news. I mean, can we ice fish again pretty soon or not?
Yes, I think so.
Well, it was melting, then it's...
we did a couple weeks ago.
You
We had
did?
4.5 inches.
Yeah.
And but I believe this cold streak will get us back on the ice with at least 4.5 or 5 inches of
So
good,
there you go.
good ice.
You know, I was spoiled because a couple of years I'd never done ice fishing, and
that's
my
great.
friend Randy Watkins, who works at the lab, was saying, "Hey, let's go." So great. And I'm first of all a little tentative walking out in the middle of the lake. That didn't feel real comfortable, but it was all good,
Yeah.
and we caught a lot of fish.
And they taste so
Oh,
much
man, they
better
tasted-
than
yeah,
your
it was
August
I
bass
don't
and
know why.
crappie.
Yeah, they were great. So it was a lot of fun. So I want to get out
Nice.
there and try to do it
Good
again.
stuff.
And the fish is good for you.
It is
Populations
good
that eat fish are healthier,
Yes,
and they have less heart disease.
Yes,
How's
they
that
do.
for a segue?
Good
Good
segue.
segue.
Who's on the show today?
We have a
Cardiologist Krause.
cardiologist. Yeah,
I know.
Dr. Krause.
Dr. Steve Krause, and he
Whom
does the
we know very
interventional
well.
cardiology over at Blessing
Yep.
at Blessing Hospital in Quincy, and he's also in the past seen patients here as well, right?
Yeah.
I saw
And-
him in the hallway last Thursday. That was
Yeah.
his day to come over last
Okay,
Thursday.
he's over here once a month or
Once or
every 2
twice.
weeks? Yeah.
I saw him last Thursday, and we had a good visit.
So he, along with Dr. Hammock and Dr. Schwartz and the
Yep.
whole crew from the cardiology team over there, and that's one of the things that he prides himself in is teamwork with cardiology, and that's the way with any specialty, but especially with these kind of things, because boy, it takes a coordinated, rapid response, and
I know that he really gets wrapped up in his patients. He loves to hear the story about their lives.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
and to apply that. He calls that the number one diagnostic tool for him. And
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. And I'm thinking to myself, what, you mean just a conversation with somebody
yeah.
and getting to know them? And he calls that his number one diagnostic tool. That's awesome.
You know those doctors that come from Quincy. We're going to toot our horn. Toot toot.
Okay.
They may just be telling me this in the hallway, but they love coming over
I
here.
know,
This is like
yeah.
their day of inspiration. They
It
said,
is.
you don't have all the pomp and
Well,
circumstance and all the elevators
There's
and
a
all of
reason
the
for that.
politics.
Nope.
They
There's
love
a-
coming over here.
There's a reason for that. We always try to have fried chicken on the day that
Or carrying dinner.
Yeah,
Carry-in dinner,
yeah, it's
yeah.
job security for them.
yes, indeed.
No, and that's the wonderful thing about having been in very big hospitals and now here at Scotland County Hospital. I can tell you that I feel the same way, and I'm not sure if folks really appreciate, unless they have been to one of the bigger hospitals,
Right.
maybe because of a service we don't do here, and you've had to
Right.
be referred out. Just how sleek and efficient and streamlined care is here.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very often you get your X-ray that day or the next day. I know my obstetric patients get in and out with tests that normally I'd have to wait 2 or 3 days for. It's sort of the non-urgent things, but you'd like to know an answer. Lab tests like that, so.
And we got
there's-
digital mammography coming up here.
I know, I'm really excited.
Did
When
you
is that going to be
did you guys see it yesterday?
The equipment's here.
It's here.
Patient ready. Let's
Mid-February.
call it that, mid-February.
Yeah.
And we should say that they updated the sort of the digital reading system as well to transmit information
Yep.
faster and bigger swaths of data. So
Yeah.
that's all.
And the 64 slice scanner, we went from 32 to 64. You can probably
Yep.
address
Matter how
that
you
more.
slice
So.
That means quicker scans. That means more precise scans. That means that they can see more detail.
Yeah.
So It's amazing. Have you seen what they can do, how they can manipulate those images? I mean, not only do they do sort of the slice up like you slice a bratwurst, just down one another, but they can then turn the image on its front. They can slice it, as though long ways, like slicing pickle slices long ways, which is important because that gives us, no, really.
Bratwurst, pickle slices, hey.
I didn't eat breakfast, you can tell. She sent me out the door with a cup of coffee and an orange. That just doesn't do it.
Oh, you're going to get it for that one.
Yeah. No, and so, but I'm trying to what I'm trying to explain is that it gives you a different way with one test. I mean, one acquisition of the information, then the computer, because it's all digital, can reassemble that information in ways that are useful to the surgeon, the radiologist, the doctor, who's ever looking for things. So that's
state-of-the-art imaging center.
Yeah.
The new imaging center. Really a good benefit.
And I do want to just mention to folks, it is cold. And you need to put that kit in your car. The one we talk about all the time for survival, the candle, et cetera, et cetera. You need to put that in your car. You need to get your gloves and your scarf. I know. Just put them in the car at least.
Yeah.
So that if something happens out there, believe me, this is not the kind of weather you want to be outside in if you don't have to be.
I know, but I'm always in the economic environment with the cost of fuel and the political environment with everyone knowing we need to be less dependent on our fossil fuels. I am always torn betwixt and between on a morning like this. Do I warm it up? Don't I warm it up? I don't know. So I sort of do it midway.
We started the warm up last week, and then I got my heavy coat out this
That's
week.
right.
And
I got my gloves and my Nanook of the North, hat on. So
well, there's no cooler water to protect the skin right now. I can guarantee you that thing is cranked.
Yeah, it's something else. Yeah. So at any rate, we're talking about technology. We're talking about the imaging center, and Dr. Krause has some amazing technology with the interventional cardiology. Now, that's, of course, we all have had an EKG. Well, many have had an EKG. You may have an echocardiogram, and those are indirect ways of looking at the heart. But of course, the gold standard for those arteries that are feeding the heart muscle, and which, when they get blocked, cause what we call a myocardial infarction or a heart attack, is to get a look at the inside of the arteries. And of course, that traditionally has been by threading a catheter up the leg and all the way up to the heart, through a groin vein. He does a neat way of doing it, and we're going to talk with him about that, and maybe about some of the other up and coming. And since he's such an honest guy, he's gonna probably talk about what an interesting way we can now look at those arteries without doing the catheter thing too. But they're still not as accurate as doing the catheter. And not only can they, of course, get an idea of how much plaque and blockage there is or isn't, but then do things about it. And you may have heard that there's been a lot of controversy over the past few years over the stents that are put in during the angioplasty procedures. And I can't keep up with it as best I try, so we're going to get the bottom line from the guy who knows and who does it, because you hear, there's ones that leach out a little drug to help keep them open. There's ones that don't do that. No, we thought they were good. Now they're not good. It's confusing as all get out, and so we're going to get that sorted out as well.
Absolutely. Did you see the thing about flu vaccine? No eggs. That's awesome. I know a lot of people who... I
didn't have eggs this morning. You had to bring it up, didn't you?
Yeah.
Just an orange.
Set
me out of the...
We need to take you for brunch.
No. So if you have an egg allergy, then this is a new option.
It's done using insects.
Wow. So what if you have arachnophobia? If you don't like spiders and flying things? Well, I don't think I want that vaccine.
Then you probably have to still stay away from that one.
Yeah. And my first question when I heard that was, well, wait a minute, insects. I wonder if, like bee venom, if you're allergic to that, as many people are, if that's a problem. My understanding, it isn't an issue.
No, not at all.
So that'll be now. That's not out this year, though, right?
Well,
I think that'll be.
It is in a very
pilot
limited,
type of thing.
Yeah. But that means that next year it
Good.
will be.
Good. And we're still seeing a lot of influenza cases. We're
goodness.
seeing a lot of the stomach flu cases. So again, hand wash, cough into your sleeve. Try not to go to work if you're sick, or go home if you get sick.
I saw a doctor on TV, I think it was day before yesterday anyway, they had a person sneeze.
Oh, yeah, a great demonstration,
and, it's like powdered donuts.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, there was a device that when you sneeze into it, it disperses.
He got on dark dark clothing on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean,
Then they used like an ultraviolet light or
Yeah.
something to show it, and it used talc to simulate where all the droplets
made you want
go.
to jump out the car door whenever.
Yeah,
anybody
if someone
sneezes.
sneezes, I mean, you're taking a bath, and then someone else is the shower, if you know what I mean. It's not good. So
When it's all said and
careful.
done, our body does a pretty good job of trying to protect us.
yeah, and it does, but we need to give it the proper information because altogether now, food is information, right? And we need to tell the genes to make the right proteins and the right defense molecules to keep our immune system strong and keep our defenses up. And that's why fruits and veggies and lean meats and fish and lots of fluids are important and probably better than donuts and fried goods and things that come in crinkly packages.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, including the powdered donuts.
Yeah. Hey, I'm turning the corner. I mean, the other night I was offered sort of one of these soupy, gunky things with lots of cheese and potatoes and everything, and it actually, I came home, I told my wife, I said, I already ate a little bit, but I need to have some good food. I need to have some real food.
You resist.
And I love that gunky, gooey butter cake, casserole kind of stuff. Look, I'll admit it. However, we've talked about it before. If you just try to commit to eating that healthy stuff, your body will begin to crave it, and you'll begin to reject the others. Okay? And sooner or later, we'll have every fast food place serving good, healthy food.
Yeah, right.
That's our...
Hang
No?
your hat on that one for a while.
Did you see that story that they did an international study on youngsters, and the severity of their allergic asthma is much worse by eating as little as 3 fast food meals a week? Yeah. Back with more and Stephen
Show
Krause.
your support for the Iowa athletes that have worked hard throughout this basketball season. Iowa Network Services and your local independent telecommunications company are proud to honor the INS Player of the Week, featuring your area high school athletes. Tune in to this station to get the INS Player of the Week, a title reserved for those male and female athletes that made statements on the hardwoods of Iowa. Iowa Network Services and your local independent telecommunications company, actively supporting high school athletics and the youth of Iowa's future.
Max here for Team INS. When you choose Iowa Network Services and your independent telecommunications company, you're choosing a winning team with a home court advantage. Local telecommunications companies are in your neighborhood, and INS has 25 years of experience connecting customers to information anytime, anywhere. Learn more at iowanetworkservices.com. INS and your local independent telecommunications company, actively supporting high school athletics and the youth of Iowa's future. Game on!
You know you need a college education to get ahead in today's world, but the thought of wearing a suit and tie to work every day makes you sick. And you can't fathom the idea of being chained to a desk all day. You, my friend, need to have something to show for a good day's work. Maybe you should consider a welding degree from SCC. In 2 years, you'll have what it takes to make good money working in a career field that fits you. We're onto something. Southeastern Community College, educating students and giving technical careers the respect they deserve since 1920. Don't wait. Register today.
It's the nothing but net buzzer beater.
Made it! Made it at the buzzer! That's good! That counts!
The gravity-defying dunks.
Absolutely flushed it.
It's the rebound that saves the win. The no-look pass around the back. The student body that never stops believing. It's Tiger Basketball.
Sponsors include Hoosie's, Memphis Lumber Company, the dental office of Dr. Harlow Donaldson, Braddo Pizza, M's Place, Kirksville Yamaha Honda, and Carpet One.
Billions of dollars are lost each year to Medicare fraud and abuse, jeopardizing the quality health care all Medicare beneficiaries deserve. We must take action to help protect, detect, and report potential fraud, abuse, or errors. You can help by reviewing your Medicare summary notice or by helping your peers and becoming a senior Medicare Patrol volunteer. Contact the Missouri SMP at 888-515-6565 or visit goaging.org.
Watch full coverage of Governor Jay Nixon's State of the State address on January 28th at MissouriNet.com. Governor Nixon will detail his legislative and economic priorities as well as present his recommended budgets for the fiscal year 2014. Coverage will be anchored by MissouriNet's Bob Priddy and is in partnership with KMIZ-TV Columbia. Governor Nixon's State of the State address. Watch it live Monday evening, January 28th at MissouriNet.com. Your state, your news, MissouriNet.
Wait till your times are right for these arms to surround. You think you've flown before, but you ain't left the ground. Wait till you're locked in my embrace. Wait till I draw you near. Wait till you see that sunshine place. Ain't nothing like it here. The best is yet to come, and baby,
That's the way we'd like to think of every segment on the show. The best is yet to come.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Krause may well be involved in some interventional study right now. We're having a hard time reaching him, but I know his life is just packed full of unexpected things. You know, someone rolls in with a heart attack, and they, for instance, it happens, they go quickly from here to there, and they right up from the ER, they have a direct pipeline through the elevator right up to the cardiac cath lab, and bingo, you're in, and you get those arteries checked out and opened up. So he may be involved in something like that, but we'll have him join us when he joins us.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I did want to follow up. This is really an interesting study because it confirms what we've been talking about and what I think a lot of you should know, not only about your children, but about your own eating habits and its effect on your health. This was an international collaboration of scientists from New Zealand, Spain, Australia, and Germany. So this is not just some isolated pocket of weirdness in somewhere in the world that you can't really extrapolate to everyone. But I think you can generalize it well. And they looked at many, many, many children, okay? And what they found is that children aged 6 to 7 had an increased risk when they ate fast foods, okay, more than 3 times a week, of having severe asthma. Now, they linked it to burgers, but it was generalized. They asked questions. How often do you eat at the fast food joint and have a burger, okay?
Right.
Not that everyone eats burgers, but not a lot of people are eating salads. Let's be honest about that. I mean, although you can get salads.
Yeah, you can get them.
But your kids are not going to be going to, hey, Mom, can we go to McDonald's and get a super special salad Happy Meal with balsamic vinaigrette? I don't think so.
No.
The research was published in the journal Thorax. Thorax, of course, is your chest. And it was a large collaborative project. And it was over 2 million children in more than 100 countries. And this is the International Study of Asthma and Allergies in Childhood. Okay? At any rate, they sent out questionnaires, and they looked at their eating habits.
Were these kids who already had asthmatic problems or upper or lower airway?
Right. They were asked whether and how often they suffered from specific asthma and allergy symptoms, okay? Yeah. And whether that stopped them from sleeping or got in the way of their sports or their daily activities or so forth. And what's interesting is that the fast food link was stronger among teenagers than among the younger children, which may be because adolescents have more independence. They're probably eating more independence, money, and control over what they eat. Yeah. So maybe they're eating like 2 burgers and 3 French fries rather than a cup of yogurt and 1 burger. Who knows? But the good news is, that among those children that ate fruits and vegetables 3 times a week, they had some protection. Eating 3 or more portions a week reduced the severity of symptoms by 10 to 15%, and so that's a big deal.
Here? How come? And is this at all linked, like with, remember when hot dogs and eating too many hot dogs was like really bad on your airway system?
I will mention that these children also got eczema and rhinitis. That's the drippy nose, the runny nose, and that kind of a thing. Think about it. All of the symptoms we're talking about, allergies, asthma, the runny nose, eczema, are inflammatory conditions. Yes. It's your body acting out. Yeah. Just like a child on the playground acting out. Yeah. We're creating ruckus. Yeah. Creating inflammation all over the playground. And what happens is in fast foods you see a lot more trans fats, which are of course more inflammation prone. It's as though they're dousing their systems that are already, partially because of nature, but now we learn there is a component of nurture, with a little fuel on an already burning fire. Okay, when you have asthma, your breathing tubes are constricted; they're twitchy. Right. They may be set off by something that you're allergic to. It may be set off by cold weather. A lot of people do that. When I run in the cold, sometimes I get a little tight in the chest
because they're already vulnerable.
Yeah, and so the chemicals that make vessel spasm, that make noses run, that make breathing tubes get tight, are the things that really have to do with the inflammatory influences in our life.
Yeah.
Saturated fats and trans fats are among those.
Right.
Whereas the fruits and vegetables in our life tend to be fire extinguishers. They put out inflammation. And so kids that ate more fruits and vegetables had less severe asthma and allergies and eczema. Those who ate more fast foods with their fried goodies and all of the things that turn up the fire, okay, they had more. But that translates to adult kiddies too.
Yeah.
And what happens inside their arteries.
IR1.
Because what happens in your arteries, whether in the brain or the heart or your leg, has a lot to do with inflammation.
Yes.
And what happens to that cholesterol? Cholesterol by itself is sort of a happy little camper, a little fuzzball, literally.
Necessary.
When it gets inflamed, it becomes a part of the wall of your artery, and then Dr. Stephen Krause has to see you. And you'd much rather see Dr. Stephen Krause at the mall and say, "Hi, how you doing?"
Rather do
Not
that.
in the cath lab. How you doing, Dr. Krause?
I'm doing well. That was a rough segue.
What do you mean rough? I was proud of that. I thought that was pretty good. No, but it's true, isn't it? I mean, we were talking about a study done on children, international study, that showed that kids that ate at fast food restaurants more than 3 times a week were significantly more likely to have severe asthma, eczema, rhinitis, allergy symptoms, whereas those that ate fruits and vegetables had some protection. It's a common theme in our body, isn't it, including your specialty, cardiology and vascular disease?
Oh, absolutely. Diet, how people select what they eat, even from a young age all the way into adulthood, has a significant impact on the progression or development of coronary artery disease. So it's very important that people reduce the fat intake in their diet. It has a very intimate relationship with cholesterol levels and that part of your cholesterol panel called your LDL, which is your low-density lipoproteins that are particularly atherogenic, that actually form plaque in the arteries that end up causing stroke or heart attack. So I agree.
So this Dr. Stephen Krause, and he is a fantastic doc because, when you interact with Dr. Krause, you can imagine what it would be like to be a patient. Someday I'll be seeing you, Steve, I'm sure. But he's just a caring guy, and he's a normal guy. And so he can explain things to you, even though he's got such advanced training, including not only is he boarded in internal medicine, but then also, cardiology, and then beyond that, interventional cardiology, which means he does things to the vessels in the heart, and both diagnostically, and we're going to get it, and therapeutically, and we're going to talk about that. But it's hard to have. It's unusual to have docs, and does the Blessing Physician Services, Dr. Krause, recruit for extraordinarily bedside competent doctors? Because our friend Dr. Hammock has been on with us. You are the kind of guy that you could drink a beer with and say, "Oh yeah, so here's what happens with your heart," and it all makes sense, and you're not intimidating people. Is that part of the way you develop your team, not only the docs but the nurses?
Yeah, we try to pick physicians that are able to take their knowledge and bestow it upon their patients so that they can take better care of themselves. Because let's be honest, primary prevention, which is doing things, lifestyle changes, so you don't develop a heart attack to begin with, is much more powerful medication than having to treat a blockage once it's developed. So primary prevention is important, and to get primary prevention, you've got to get the trust of your patient. You have to be able to take all these complex ideas and thoughts and science and communicate it to your patients so that they understand it. And I tell people, we're not smarter than anybody else. It's when my plumber comes to my house and talks to me about problems with my plumbing or an electrician, I have no idea. They have their own different language. I just say, please just fix it. And they take care of it. But it's the same thing. You've got to be able to communicate to your patient, and there's plenty of studies that show that physicians that are able to communicate with their patients better, their patients do better because they're more compliant, they follow the recommendations. So it's really important. It's a whole skill set that you have to communicate to your patients, get better outcomes.
And so there's an entire team at Blessing Physician Services and Blessing Hospital in Quincy, and we have allied with that team. And, of course, Dr. Krause is the leader, one of the leaders of that team. And so if someone comes to our emergency room here at Scotland County Hospital. Maybe you have never seen the cardiologist here, but all of a sudden you're out shoveling snow and you're having crushing chest pain, and you know something's up. Maybe you start sweating and you're hurting in your jaw or down your arm, and you come in here. We have such a nice streamlined method. And we were sort of given a virtual tour a year or so ago, and boy, you guys really have it down to just a science in terms of getting people into the cath lab, and that's where you come into play quickly because time is muscle, right?
No, absolutely. The heart itself is very unforgiving. If you have a blocked artery and there's no blood flow going to that part of the heart muscle, which again the blood carries oxygen, and the heart is a muscle, and ironically, even though it pumps oxygen-rich blood to your rest of your body, it needs its own plumbing to get its own blood supply. And if that blood supply is cut off, that part of the heart muscle will die, and the heart does not regenerate like your skin cells. So you have about 90 minutes from the time that artery closes to have it opened again before that part of the heart dies off, and it will not regenerate. So that's why it's such a time-sensitive issue to get them to a heart lab. Now, Scotland County Hospital is a wonderful hospital, but unfortunately the majority of hospitals in the United States do not have heart labs, where they can take someone and opening up a blocked artery. But they have been just on the cutting edge of making sure that they have a system in place where they're treated very appropriately and with top-notch care in their ER, and then they transfer them to a facility with a cath lab, and that's where we come in. But like I said, they get the best care in that ER, and then they transfer them to us, and then we take it from there, and we just open up the blocked artery. And it's a very streamlined process. It used to be, before I came in this community 5 or 6 years ago, you'd have to call into the ER, the physician, to give orders on what they wanted their patient to get when they came in. But now we have what we call order sets, where the ER doctor does not have to get a hold of your regular family practitioner or internal medicine doctor or whoever you see to get orders. So we completely cut that out. They have order sets. They follow it right in the ER. They check them. The patient gets all these appropriate medications, and we transfer them immediately to our facility. There's no calling and seeing, are you going to accept the patient? No, we have accepted policies that we're going to take all the cardiac patients from Scotland that are having a heart attack. We won't refuse acceptance. We get them right to our lab. We're notified even before the patient leaves Scotland County here in Quincy. So if it's in the middle of the night, we drive in, and we are standing there by the ER bay waiting for that patient to come off the ambulance or the life flight helicopter and take them right up to the lab. And we have an average, what we call door to balloon, which is the time you hit our ER bay to the time we open up that blocked artery. The goal is under 90 minutes. Our average over the last year was in the 45-minute time range, which is half the national average. It's probably one of the best times in the nation. But it's because we have these great relationships with hospitals like Scotland County, with the great leadership. Now, this was incited through their CEO, Marcia Dial, who saw the need for this to be initiated, because Missouri started legislation to demand that these types of networks be set up for trauma patients and heart attack patients. And Marcia Dial led the way with making sure that the people she served in her community got this care. So we set it up, and we've been getting great results. And we've been very honored and pleased to take care of the patients from that region.
I think one of the really unique things to me is, and it's amazing to me how much they coordinate with one another, is the golden hour. And it has to do with, of course, a lot of car traumas and things like that, blunt force trauma. But then it's also exactly what we're talking about with the heart for a different reason, but still there's a golden hour time period of time there. And I was looking yesterday on Centers for Disease Control about leading causes of death. So I don't know exactly how close these numbers are, but strokes 129,000. Cancer is 574,000. Of course, at the top of the list, heart disease, which is almost 600,000. And I don't know how those figures are now, but that's what they had on there. And I wondered about a couple of things. One of them was cholesterol, and we talked about that just a little bit earlier on the show. There are no symptoms, really, are there, of high cholesterol, or has that changed?
Well, it's excellent that you bring that up. You can't look at somebody skinny or overweight and say what their cholesterol is. Now, there are some extreme genetic conditions that actually will manifest out on the skin and give you what's called xanthomas, which is lipid deposition in the skin. But for the majority of people who don't have these very rare genetic conditions, you can't look at somebody and go, I bet you they have high cholesterol. So really, people need to get screened.
Therefore, if they don't know that there's no symptomology with it, then there's a huge likelihood that there's a lot of people that don't have their cholesterol checked that probably ought to have, and have it checked like we have other tests to check things with.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. If you look at some of the national guidelines, they recommend adults get their cholesterol checked every 3 to 5 years unless they fit into certain high-risk categories. High cholesterol, like you alluded to, can be a silent killer. You don't know until you have that stroke, until you have that heart attack. So there's very easy screening tools available, a cholesterol panel that we can use to assess risk. But I also argue very strongly about diabetes. Oftentimes people will have diabetes for 10 years before it's diagnosed because it starts slowly. And then you get the very high sugar levels that bring you into the hospital, and the 400, 500 level sugars. But you don't start out like that. Adults with adult-onset diabetes can start on slowly with mild to moderate diabetes. That's not diagnosed if they don't see their physician. So I also screen my patients with a fasting sugar level, once a year, just to check. So if I can detect early onset diabetes, I can intervene with dietary changes, lifestyle modification, and even medication if needed. Because by the time, if you don't screen and you catch it late, a lot of the destructive elements of diabetes, particularly to the coronary arteries, have already developed and they have blockages.
And, of course, we screen our patients for probably the leading worry thing that we worry about is, of course, tobacco use. And when we come back, maybe we can talk about that and if we're making a little dent in that whole problem with Dr. Stephen Krause. Now, you don't have someone there in the cath lab ready for you, do you?
No, I can't promise an emergency will not pop up.
Okay. If you can join us for another segment, we'd like that because we also want to talk about another interesting service there that Dr. Krause has, because I understand it's sort of like going to the Easy Boy recliner, and you can get your cath too, and he's a specialist in that. And I think they serve a latte, and you can get some hummus and some other things while you're getting your
vibrator.
It's great, yeah. It almost makes you want to drive that cholesterol high, let that blood pressure go. I want the easy chair cath. We'll talk about that with Dr. Steve Krause when we come back here on Healthy You. Stay tuned for lots more.
'Cause she's got her own obligations, and so do I. Me and Mrs. Jones.
With Community Bank in Memphis, you can bank from the comfort of your car. Our drive-up banking service is really handy when the weather is bad or you can't come into the bank. Get cash, make deposits, and other banking transactions at the drive-up window without leaving your car. Community Bank in Memphis has a drive-up ATM for withdrawals or transfers. Drive-up banking, another convenient service for your hometown bank. Hometown banking with your neighbors and friends at Community Bank in Memphis. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Winter is beautiful, but it can make traveling treacherous. Be aware of traffic patterns and be courteous to other drivers. Missouri traffic crash reports indicate the most contributing factor of traffic crashes are inattention, traveling too fast for conditions, failing to yield, and following too close. When the roads are snow-covered or icy, the chance you'll be in a traffic crash increases. Patience is the key to safe winter driving. A message from Sergeant Brent Bernhardt of the Missouri State Highway Patrol and KMEM.
I'm Dan. I'm Clay from Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance. They are the #1 insurer of farms in the state of Missouri. That's why I'm wearing this big foam finger. It's from the Springfield Cardinals baseball team. They're a farm club. Whether you're a farm or a farm club, Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance is #1. This foam finger makes my hand sweat. Here, Dan, you take it.
You don't have to be a farmer to save money with Farm Bureau Insurance. Where'd I put my keys?
Did I feed the dog?
I forgot to call him back.
Every day you forget something. But when it comes to electricity, you can't afford to forget safety, because what you don't remember might shock you. Hundreds of lives are tragically lost every year in accidents involving electricity. Don't become a statistic. Stay current on safety. This message from Missouri's electric cooperatives.
It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. You or someone you know is really scared they might be pregnant, and there's so many questions. What choices are there? How will this affect my future? Who will help me? You need information and answers to questions. We at Memphis Area Pregnancy Care Center care about you, and we are here to listen, to provide information, and to remind you there is hope for your future. Contact Memphis Area Pregnancy Care Center at 660-465-7179 for an appointment. All of our services are free and confidential.
Try the General Store weekdays with Dave Bowden from 9:06 to 10 a.m. right here. Our two-station simulcast means we get an average of close to 50 calls every weekday. Hundreds of people might be interested in your items, and who knows, you may even find a bargain. Call Dave Bowden on the General Store at 1-800-748-7875 or 660-465-7225.
We're back on Healthy You. It's 19 minutes till the hour as we chat with Dr. Stephen Krause, interventional cardiologist with Blessing Physician Services, and he frequents our hangout once in a while.
He does.
That's right, on Thursdays,
yeah.
Along with his cadre of colleagues, Dr. Heng and Dr. Well, Hammock is banished. He's like he's banished on the Isle of Crete somewhere, isn't he? Where is he? Is he on a rock pile somewhere in the Mediterranean? I don't know. What's he doing?
He's learning. He's at school.
And Dr. Schwartz, and so it's a great group of people. We talked about some of the silent blockers. I mean, cholesterol, and then I guess we need to talk also about tobacco and hypertension as well, right, Dr. Krause?
Oh, absolutely. Those are other two big factors that, if not diagnosed or if not treated, definitely increases your risk for heart attack and stroke. Hypertension is another one, kind of falls in the category that you usually don't wake up one day and have very high blood pressure. It can slowly escalate over time. Mm-hmm. And just like with your cholesterol and your sugar level for diabetes, you can't look at somebody and say, they have high blood pressure. You have to be screened, and that's a very easy screening tool with your primary doctor checking your blood pressure once a year to make sure that you're at the targets you need to be. Now, what would be a good target? If you don't have diabetes, your blood pressure, after you sit and rest for 15 minutes, the top number should be under 140, and the bottom number should be under 90. And that's systolic blood pressure on the top and diastolic blood pressure on the bottom. But I just tell people, remember, the top number should be under 140, the bottom number over 90. Now, if you're diabetic, we have different targets for them. We want the top number actually under 130 and the bottom number under 80. Okay. So if you're diabetic, different numbers, 130 over 80.
Okay. And then, of course, smoking, I mean, everyone knows about that. It affects not only those arteries that feed the heart muscle, but, of course, the arteries that feed the brain and the arteries that feed the muscles of the body and the legs and the kidneys and everything. So that's a given. And I think we're beginning to catch on as a society. I mean, some of it by regulation, some of it by education. I'm disappointed, though, Steve, that I'm seeing more and more young women. It seems like the adolescent women and young women, and sadly, they either continue or start smoking. Sometimes they resume smoking after they've stopped because of the weight issue. Do you believe, as I do, that you'd rather see a smoker put on 10 or 15 pounds and carry that than smoke? I mean, if you had to make a choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. If I was to take the lesser of two evils, I would take the weight gain over the tobacco. Now, the thing about smoking, and I always tell my patients this, I said, the nicotine craving is gone in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But and most people get through that. Most people say, I quit for 3 or 4 months, and then I ended up going back to smoking. Well, why is it? Because no one addressed the psychological component to smoking. to me, smoking falls into the same basket of issues with alcohol use or drug use. Is you have to get to the main reason why you're smoking. If you no longer have the nicotine craving, why did you go back to it? And it's usually because you had a stressful part in your life that moved you back to smoking. So if you tell people the behavioral aspects of smoking, that you've got to learn to deal with your stress in a different manner. And if you don't address the way in which you deal with stress, your odds are you're going to go back to smoking. So that's an important part in getting people to quit smoking. Not only just getting rid of the nicotine dependence, because like I said, that's 2 weeks, that's gone. It's the psychological need that when you're under stress, to pick up that cigarette and smoke. You've got to change that behavioral pattern or you'll keep falling off the wagon.
Let's talk about that. Let's take a little detour here and talk about stress. Okay, you just alluded to why stress has a secondary effect on heart disease through likelihood to smoke. But wouldn't that also apply towards likelihood to eat? A lot of us are stress eaters.
You're absolutely correct. People tend to go to places that they get comfort. So the same thing where if you'll eat because that's a comfort. You release tryptophans and stuff, and you'll feel some degree of euphoria. Same thing with smoking, same thing with alcohol, same thing with drug abuse. You've got to deal with the root issue, which is this is what their behavior is when they're under stress. They've got to find another way to deal with stress besides going to things that they get comfort from.
That's just so amazing to me because all the government websites that teach you or try to instruct you on how to quit smoking do not have anything.
No. But beyond that, I mean, so stress management is important, so it doesn't encourage you to continue those stress-related habits, which impact. But what about? I mean, I'm reading more and more, and I'm becoming more and more fascinated, and I think becoming more and more convinced that we underestimate the direct effects of stress and the stress hormones that are released in terms of heart disease. Yay or nay?
No, you're absolutely correct. If you think about it, normally when you're under stress, you're releasing more. They're called catecholamines, which are these hormones released from the adrenal glands. They're epinephrine. They increase your heart rate. They even change the size of your pupil. They increase your blood pressure. Those chemicals can actually cause a heart attack. One of the plaques you might have that have developed in your artery can rupture, and then a clot can form. I've had people come in who have, under a stressful emotional event, had suddenly an onset of a heart attack. Well, it was the response physiologically to the release of those catecholamines that caused a plaque to rupture. Now, it's unrealistic to say that let's just avoid stress, because come on, living, you wake up, you got stress,
Right, sure.
You can't completely avoid it, but learning how to deal with stress, learning how to release the stress particularly. I would love it if all my patients said, when I get stressed, I go and I exercise, because that's what I want them to do.
Yeah.
You release that negative energy, and I think there is not only a good effect on blood pressure and cholesterol, but I think physiologically it reduces those catecholamines that are released during stressful events.
Yeah, and on a long-term basis, the cortisone that's released for long-term stress, I mean, that results in more fat deposition, calorie for calorie. And so, stress management is such an important thing, and I think we underestimate it. Now, before we let you go, okay, so you come to the emergency room, and Dr. Krause eventually meets you in the cath room. And I've seen the recliners. Tell me about the new type of catheterization, why it is for some people and not for others. And I guess the ultimate question is, are we coming to a time when people with the right set of risk factors should have sort of a, quote, quick cath to find out where they're at so they don't have one of these catastrophic, life-ending events before they even get a chance to see you?
Sure. We all who are in the medical field always laugh and says everything's getting smaller and faster. But it's the same thing for heart catheterization. In the United States, the most common area we use to get to the heart is through the femoral artery, which is an artery down in the groin area where the leg meets the pelvis. But there's been a big move to go through the radial artery, which is the pulse where you feel at the wrist. That's an artery now we can go through because equipment has gotten small enough now we can use that. And obviously, if we go through your groin, you got to lay flat for sometimes up to 6 hours after the procedure because that's a much larger artery.
Ouch.
In the wrist, it's very tiny, and once we take the equipment out, you can get up in an hour. After we do the procedure, you can sit up. So it's a much more pleasant experience through the wrist than through the groin. There's also lower risk of infection. So patients love it. Now, in regards to you maybe going home the same day, even if we put a heart stent in, the wrist now, there's several places in Europe that if they put a stent in, you'll go home within 6 hours, even after, even though that stent's put in that heart. Normally, you stay overnight. But now there's a shift in the medical community that if you get it done through the wrist, given it's so much safer, you can go home within 6 hours.
That's amazing. Wow.
Now, not everybody can get it done through the wrist, though, because most people, they have blood flow to their hands that come through two arteries. One is the artery where I might put my IV in to do the procedure. The other one is called your ulnar artery. But some people, maybe 5% of the population, don't have complete blood flow in their hand through both of those arteries. So I can't close one of them during a procedure and then still maintain good blood flow in the hand. So there are a small percentage of people that can't have it done through the wrist, but for the large part, probably over 90% can get it done through the wrist.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And finally, before we let you go here, because we're running short on time, and I know you are too, we've heard a lot of controversy about stents. Stents that were all touted, drug-eluting stents. They ooze out this drug that's going to keep things open longer. Then it seemed like there was a retraction on that. Where are we with stent technology? Are we back to square one, or are we making progress?
We're making quite a bit of progress. In fact, the first generation stents that have come out are one of them actually is off the market now because we're into the third and fourth generation of drug-coated stents where the drug actually comes off of the stent quicker. There's a lower risk of complications in the long term. Some of the data that's come out on some of these third and fourth generation stents, some of the medication can be stopped earlier than we did with the first generation stents. And Europe is now coming out with a stent that dissolves within a year. It's made of magnesium. It's magnesium-based, and it's completely, after a year, you can't see it anymore. It's gone. So we just keep moving forward, and that's what's exciting about the field of cardiology. So, and remember, like you said, it is the number one killer of men and women in the United States, but we keep, I think, making new therapies that are prolonging people's quality of life.
Well, it's fantastic, and thank you for the work you do and all of your colleagues and the great team that you have to provide service to our community. And thanks for filling us in a little bit here on Healthy You. We really do appreciate it, Dr. Stephen Krause. If you guys, have some blood pressure unattended to, some cholesterol, maybe hasn't been checked or hasn't been dealt with, you're smoking, whatever, remember the lifetime award for those kind of problems is a plaque. It's not exactly the plaque you want, but Dr. Krause can help you deal with it if that's what you get. Dr. Steve Krause, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. We'll check with you again. Take care. All right, guys. We're going to take a little break, step aside, and then come back and wrap it up and put a bow on the show. We'll be right back.
Mid-American Energy is putting the power to achieve greater energy efficiency in our hands. Their website offers smart tools for saving energy like online energy audits for our homes and simple, inexpensive tips like changing furnace and air conditioner filters regularly, using compact fluorescent bulbs, and closing drapes on hot, sunny days. Save some green with Mid-American by visiting MidAmericanEnergy.com. Energy efficiency is in our hands with Mid-American Energy, obsessively, relentlessly at your service.
Community. At Iowa Banks, our local community isn't just where we work, it's where we live. It's friends, families, and neighbors working together for a common good. Whether teaching a savings class for kids, giving a financial seminar for small businesses, or helping a neighbor in need, Iowa bankers care about creating a strong, vibrant community. To find an Iowa Bank near you, go to myiowabank.com. Iowa Banks, Iowa values.
If you've heard anything about Bosch dishwashers, you've most likely heard how quiet they are. In fact, Bosch offers the quietest dishwashers in America. It's because Bosch is committed to producing the world's best appliances, including dishwashers that meet the exacting Bosch standards of German-engineered quality and European design. In fact, a total of 485 quality control tests are performed on every Bosch dishwasher before they leave the factory. But despite our dishwashers' quietness, our customers have been making a lot of noise recently about us. Bosch dishwashers were just ranked highest in customer satisfaction with dishwashers by J.D. Power and Associates. You can't rank any higher than that.
Visit your local Bosch dealer for special promotions. Bosch offers the quietest dishwashers in the U.S. based on available sound information on competitors' websites, December 2012. For J.D. Power and Associates award information, visit jdpower.com.
Go Caleb! Come on, hit a homer, Jesse!
Let's go, guys!
Hey, did you guys know that kids who play sports earn more money when they grow up?
Of course. I knew that.
Hey, did you guys know that kids who read books have a bigger vocabulary?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Wow, jinx. Did you guys know that friendly children have more friends?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's true. I knew that. Did you guys know that winter babies are better at music?
Everyone knows that.
Oh, yeah?
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
obvious.
Oh, hey, guys, did you know that most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Huh, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure I knew that.
I'm pretty sure you didn't.
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right car seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
So we don't do a lot of fear-mongering here on the program, but I will tell you the story of an interesting, a tragic story of a friend of ours. And I may have already said this, but I'm going to say it again because we're doing a show on cardiology. A dear friend of my son's, actually the father of my buddy, my son's best buddy, died in his sleep, mid-50s.
Wow.
And fantastic guy, a narc and then a homicide detective in St. Louis, and a great guy. And it turned, he actually liked to hunt up here a lot. Mm-hmm. And it really shook my son up, I can tell you that. But the message out of this was, apparently, after the fact, discussion, figuring out how in the world could this happen? Oh,
happened?
My God. Apparently he had blood pressure he hadn't treated.
Wow.
Now that's the word, who knows? But I hear those stories all the time, being in this business and talking with patients and listening to the stories that they tell about their families and friends. Not that you can, by managing your blood pressure or stopping smoking or looking at your cholesterol or avoid, we're all going to eventually end up somewhere else, eventually, right?
Yeah.
Cause of death is living, okay? But the problem is you don't want it to happen prematurely. You don't want to have it happen before you say your goodbyes. Right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to happen when it was mostly preventable or at least treatable.
Yeah.
And so it's important not to run from these realities because,
you could have justifiably had another 30 years of life.
Absolutely. And there was a time 20, 30 years ago where to have coronary artery disease meant you were literally a cardiac invalid. You didn't do anything but sit in your air conditioning and you couldn't do anything. Now, with rehab, with stenting, with medications, it's a brand new world for folks.
It absolutely is. I was talking to Chris the other day in our certified cardiac rehab center, and it is just amazing the things that they can do with people.
Right.
And it's a confidence builder when you
bet.
the time that you're in that class going through those exercises and things, it's building up confidence.
And it's not a stretch to say that while some people may have accumulated risk factors, 1, 2, 3, and not dealt with them directly, okay, and they have their event, after they deal with them directly, they're actually in a better place than they were before the event. They're actually healthier.
And they'll tell you that.
They start eating right. They throw away the cigarettes.
Yeah.
They treat their blood pressure. And they walk every day for 30 minutes. That's not too much to ask, is it, guys? Because after all, we want you listening for a long, long time. All right. Hey, thanks for listening. And share the information with someone if you can. And if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of us through the hospital at 465-8511. And get in touch with Bud or Elisa through the website and let them know what you'd like to hear.
ScotlandCountyHospital.com.
And we'll bring it to you, okay? Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thank you, guys. Great show today. And remember, this week, be well. Share it with someone you love, and someone you live. All right, we'll be back next week on Healthy You.
But you don't know it's true, 'cause you can see it when I look at you. And in this crazy life, and through these crazy times, it's you. You make me sing your every line, your every.
You're listening to the best in area news, weather, and sports on America's Best Country, 100.5 KMEM Memphis, Missouri.